Hello, welcome once again. My name is Craig from Axminster Tools. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. Today we're back on bandsaws. We're very specifically looking at curve cutting on the bandsaw. Something this machine does extremely well. It will make those jobs in your workshop so much better, so much easier. Cutting curves by hand is quite tough. Coping saw, no thanks. Bandsaw most definitely. And it's one of the things, as I said, the bandsaw does so well. What I'm intending to do today is just to give you a few hints and tips along the way to help you and your bandsaw perform when you've got to cut these curves. Now, curves on a bandsaw, well, you can be cutting bowl blanks out, wood turners, roughing out bowl blanks so they start more round on your lathe. That's something that's done on a bandsaw regularly. A lot of wood turners do own a bandsaw. It's kind of their second purchase after they've got their wood turning kit, really. You see this machine here will easily cope with a just over 2-inch bowl blank. Plenty of depth under the guides there. That's something that's key as well. Depth under the guides. You might just want to cut some very subtle, slow curves for an apron or a skirt on a table or something like that. You might just want to cut some random shapes. You might, and this is something I'm going to do for you in a moment, want to cut your own push stick. There's a lot of curves going on here. We'll cut that out in a minute in this 1/2-inch ply. You may want to get all kind of lovely and romantic and cut something chunky, a lovely heart shape. Something like this. We'll cut this as well. We'll see how well this machine performs cutting this big slab of tulip with this heart shape on here. But first, we're going to look at blades. Blades are everything on every machine. Quality, sharp, right blade for the job. Now, you can guarantee you're going to get quality blades from Axminster. The blades that we've been selling for decades. Something before I came to work for Axminster 11 years ago, I was really pleased that they sold the same brand of blade that I'd been selling from when I first started in this business many years ago. UK made blade. There's a whole range of different shapes and styles and widths of blade and tooth patterns, and sometimes it can get super confusing as to what blade to use. If you track back through our video history, I've done quite some detailed stuff on blades. I'm not going to go mega in detail on blades today because that'll take up all our time really. But we'll look at what I feel is the best blade for cutting curves. Now, the blade that I use a lot of is the 1/4-inch 6 TPI. Ben, can you come in closer for me? And we'll focus in now on the machine and the blades itself. All right, really close on it. How's that?
That's good.
So, the blade that I've got fitted there is a 1/4 6. What does that mean? 1/4, well, yes, we're on imperial measurements, I'm afraid. 1/4-inch wide. That's the width of the blade across this point here. 6 TPI. 6 teeth per inch. So within an inch measurement, there's 6 teeth. Pretty simple. And that's a good general purpose style of tooth to have on your machine, a 6 TPI. It'll handle cutting the thin ply pretty well. Let's get a bit of thin ply. Something like this. Without shredding it, without being too coarse. We've got a good number of teeth in the cut. What's that? 3 teeth in the cut at any one time. So that's a good number. But it'll also handle a lot thicker, a lot deeper material, like this bowl blank, for instance. All right, there's about 10 teeth in the cut. Now, if I was doing a lot, 10 teeth in the cut would be my maximum. Can struggle to clear the waste if you've got too many teeth in the cut. This particular tooth shape is called a skip tooth. As said, I'm not going to go mega in details about blades, and if I do rattle on, Ben's going to give me a dig in the ribs, don't worry. This is called a skip tooth. Ben, am I in the right place?
Yeah,
Does that look okay? Tooth, tooth, tooth. Now you can see this elongated gap in between the teeth, and it kind of looks like it skips a tooth. You know, you get somebody to draw a tooth shape, they'll go zigzag, 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 which isn't wrong on some blades, agreed. But this is a skip tooth, and this big, long, elongated gullet, the low point in the tooth is called a gullet, helps clear the waste in deep cuts. So I can get away with, Ben, if you can pass me that chunky piece that I had there. So I can handle material like this. Now, I know I said 10 teeth in the cut at any one time, and there's probably 20 to 25 teeth in the cut at any one time there. If I'm slow and I take my time, I can get away with that. If I was doing a lot of it, maybe on a bigger machine, I would most definitely go with a slightly coarser, less teeth at maybe 4 TPI. But that's quite an extreme cut. You don't do a lot of curve cutting that sort of size. Quite often it's shapes in flatter material, like you know, this skinny inch piece of tulip, fairly skinny, just over an inch piece of oak. And we're going to cut some shapes. What I'd recommend to you, if you've got your first bandsaw and you want to have a play, well, follow some of our setup videos. Setup is everything. We're still making sure that we're square here. We've got our guides set correctly, so the 2 side guides are just away from the body of the blade, but nowhere near, not come into contact with the teeth. The rear thrust block at the back here is 1 millimeter away from the back of the blade. And when you put pressure on, you can see you've got just that little bit of give, but it doesn't go, the blade won't go too far back, being pushed with the material and pop off the back of the blade, or pop off the back of the wheel and let the teeth go between these guides and blunt and damage the blade. What I do first off, as said, is just get a couple of pieces of material, get your 1/4 inch 6 blade on there and have a play. Just cut some random curves. This 1/4 inch blade could cut round about a 50p piece in its kind of diameter. Right? That's how curvy you can cut. If you've got wider blades, for instance, well, they do really struggle to cut curves. They're really for cutting straight. The wider the blade, the straighter the cut. The narrower the blade, the curvier the cut you can achieve. You can cut straight with one of these, but bear in mind, if you do a lot of curve cutting, sometimes it doesn't hold a straight line after you've done an extreme amount of curve cutting. And that's even more so on a if you try and cut curves on a wide blade like this, because what happens is this is coming through and the curve, the cut that you've just created picks up on the back of the blade here and twists the blade. And then that blade, if used like that quite a lot, will kind of stay twisted. And you might lose the set off one side. Because the set is, each tooth is bent every other way. One way, one the next. One way, one the next. All right? And that gives you a little bit of clearance. If you just do that gently on your bandsaw blade, you can feel that the teeth, the cutting points, are wider than the body of the blade, giving you that clearance, giving you what's known as kerf. All right? And you'll probably see that as we're cutting through. So let's just play. First off, I'm going to get just this little bit of ply. All right, nothing too special there, but a 1/2 inch ply. And I'm going to just cut some random shapes. I'm going to drop the guides down till they're about 20mm above the workpiece, covering over, guarding the blade that we don't need exposed, but putting the guides, the actual blade guides, closer to the action area, giving you, more control in that area. So let's just have a play. And I'll talk my way through it as we go. Hand position's important. We're always trying to keep our hands as far away as possible. Even though, this might be the line that you're following, you don't do this. Always try and keep your hands at the far extremities of the material. Don't reach through too much. You can come through a little bit, but don't go reaching through. Don't go wrapping around. Make it easy, make it comfortable for yourself. And maybe initially just question, is this the best way to cut this? And that'll keep you safe. Because we like to keep these. So, Safety specs on. Ben, if you could fire up the extraction for me. Actually, you turn off the extraction. I just want to point something out. Now that's how a bandsaw should sound. Nothing whirring, nothing grinding against the blade. A very smooth, low vibration, no noise, no screeching at this stage, and I've got some cutting to do. So, silence. Tells me that everything's right. Okay, bit of extraction, my friend. Pass me the pencil. There you go. So if, just for instance, I was looking to come in here, and my curve started there. There's nothing wrong with just putting out the side there, use the side of the blade as a guide, and then rolling on into my line. See how easy it is to follow that line. Very slow feed speed, very slow rotation. And what I'm doing actually, I'm not watching where the blade is cutting, I'm looking here somewhere. I liken it to when you're driving your car. You're not looking at the end of the bonnet, are you? Or where your wheels are kind of making contact with the road. You're looking down the road a little bit to anticipate where that curve and where that bend in the road is. And that's kind of what I'm doing here now. And I'll anticipate and just start my curve and start my turn, my material, maybe just slightly before, so you can line up the teeth into that. It's quite easy to follow a line. Needs a little bit of practice, agreed. But we can just cut some random stuff. Note my hand positions well out of the way. This is good practice. The tighter the curve, the slower I will rotate. Now sparks with this machine are normal. Excuse me, little cough. Ceramic guys do spark a little bit. Look how tight we've got on that curve. I did say 50 pence feet. Maybe I should have said 10 pence feet. As you're coming into a tight curve, just slow down. Still pushing forward ever so slightly. This is a good practice. Just get a bit of board and just randomly cut some shapes, just to get a feel for your turn. This is most definitely something I do when I'm instructing people on the excuse me again, in the safe and correct use of bandsaws. This is something that I'll do just to they can get a use for the feel for the vibration, feel for the noise level, and feel when to turn and when not. You just rotate, you can see twisting the blade instead of following their line on the board maybe. Am I going to get round there? I think I will. I'll just come round. I'll slow my speed down so this hand's pushing very slightly. If I were to go off, what we're looking not to do is side push. Just roll round on the blade. The blade acts like a pivot point. If I'm going off my line, just let go and relax. There's very few machines I'd be happy to let go blade hit cut. But what makes the bandsaw kind of one of the safer cutting tools in the workshop. And it can be quite fun as well. Just cutting some random shapes. Getting really tight here now. Slow down a little bit. Time to cut and see if I can exit in that same kind of spot. Look at that. And there we go. Right, so if you could just kill that extraction for a moment. Okay, Excuse me, quick slurp of water and a frog in my throat. And there we go. It's no particular shape, I know, but it could be. It could easily be I don't know, kid's toy. It's kind of reminded me of an octopus. I don't know why, Ben. You see that?
Yeah.
You see the octopus? All right. So that's a really good start. 1/4-6 blade. And just get a thin piece of material so there's not too much resistance or noise for you. And just have a play. Understanding the limitations. Look at some nice tight curves. You know, making kids' toys and jigsaw puzzles in a bigger scale, a finer scale. You need to go to a scroll saw really that can take this down to, well, a circle that you could barely see. It's so fine, the scroll saw. We could do the same in thicker material. Well, I know you're probably thinking, well, that's an easy bit applied, Craig. That's cheating. Well, let's just up the game a little bit. Piece of oak. And again, my friend. Slow rotation. Slow the rotation down, the finer that you're cutting. Finish is pretty good on the inside. Okay, that's because we've got a reasonably, or not too coarse blade at 6 TPI. You've got a little bit of shiny buffing on that there. Now that's where the back of the blades come into contact. And sometimes what I have done, I tend not to do it too much these days, to be fair, because I find blades are far better. I used to just get a very light file and round off the back of this blade here, just very carefully, just taking off these two corners, because of course the corner of the back of the blade is square. I tend not to do it too much these days, but that just helps it glide round a little bit. And in fact, we do keep a blade that's got that built in with the back tooth blade, which is really good for cutting deep bowl blanks. Similar sort of thinking. So there we go. There's a couple of curves cut, freehand. Well, let's talk about following a line. I've got a push stick here, and maybe you want to try this project at home. You can never have too many push sticks in the workshop, I can tell you. A useful thing both on a bandsaw, playing around, and of course table saw. There we go. I'm going to cut the mouth out first, all right, with a couple of cuts in there, and then we'll work our way round and see if we can get all the way round in one. Right. So there we go. Let's just do it. Okay, fire the extractor up then. Right. So I'm going to cut the mouth out first. Very slowly, when you're backing out of a cut, take your time, no rush. Right. Use that to push that off. When you've got a little offcut down there, don't go swiping it out of the way with your fingers. Which way round am I going to do it? If I start cutting this way, I'm going to roll round the cut and that way. If I start cutting the other way, well, I'd roll round and I'd hit the body of the machine. So that's a consideration when you start cutting curves. So we're already on. Let's have a look. Now I'm probably just going to leave my line. When I ever cut something, I like to just see my line still. It might give me something to sand or plane back to, but it just gives me a nice reference. So those are the curve cutting blade. You can see freehand. I'm picking up that straight line nicely. Right, now I'm already thinking about this curve here. I'm not going to turn just yet. But I am going to turn just now. Just before I'm trying to get there. There we go. And this is when it's okay. All I'm going to do is support. I'm not going to get really close in. I'm just really supporting. This is the driving hand. And at all times I'm keeping an eye. Whoops, just went up. At all times I'm keeping an eye where my fingers are. Alright, got a tight curve to follow. So I'll slow down. You can still see I'm nudging forward very slightly. The noise is elevated just a little bit because the back of the blade is just rubbing on the cut. Just a smidge. And with a slow rotation, we can pick that up nicely. Change hand positions. And we're just going to anticipate that curve, turning just a second or two before. And we'll start this straight cut again. Little subtle curve coming up. Now, I'm going to get close with my fingers, so I'm being very careful where they're positioned. Still the extremity here, I'm holding back here, which is fine. Alright, we've got a very tight curve coming up now. Let's see if we can get this little nose. It's extreme, this one. Wouldn't surprise, there's probably a little bit much for this blade. Yeah, I can feel that curve is just too tight. But that's fine, nothing wrong with doing that. Put that there for a sec. And then revisiting, I can start the roll there, look. And just rolling to my cut. Using the blade to guide me. There we go, in one around all that shape apart from the mouth. You may need this bit, you may need this bit. That's come out of there really nicely. Alright, here we go, Ben. Yet another push stick in the workshop. We can go with our other hundreds of push sticks that we've got. So there's a few hints and tips on cutting curves. Following lines is a little bit more difficult, hence, you know, practice with a little bit of freehand playing, messing about. You may even kind of like this shape, want to paint it up and turn it into a little something, I don't know what, you know. I've done some little years ago, I did some little splats, little wooden, you know, kind of paint or custard splats on my daughter's wall that I cut out wood and painted them all different colour. They look pretty cool, and you can see that you could easily cut that sort of thing. So that's cutting relatively thin stuff, which to be fair was relatively easy. Not a lot of noise, not a lot of resistance. Now we're going to do something in the extreme. This is pushing this machine. It's not something that I would want to do often. I can do it occasionally, and if this is my kind of work, maybe this is not the style of the size of bandsaw for me. I might want to go just a little bit bigger because you're getting close to pushing the machine to the maximum. Let's see if you can do it. There we go. You can see I'm almost at a maximum depth of cut there. I've got a little bit spare, but not a lot. If I did a lot of this size of work, I'd get a bigger bandsaw, quite honestly. So the thing is just the same. Now what I'm going to do with this is put in a couple of relief cuts. I'm going to put in a relief cut here, and I'll talk about relief cuts after we've made this big cut. Now the noise will be more. There'll be a little bit of screaming where the waste is struggling to get out of the cut itself because there's a lot of teeth within this cut. But if I'm slow and steady, it'll be fine. Okay. So, first is that relief cut. I'm just going to take it down that line there. So you can straight away, that noise is elevated, that scream. It's cut well enough, it didn't feel too much of a struggle. Now you'll probably want to notice, but the material, and this is quite important, is flat and stable on the table. Alright. That way, it's not. It's quite an important thing, and I did skim this surface off before I started, just so it is flat on the table, because when you're trying to cut a shape, what you don't want is just wobbling around, and you can imagine that would wobble quite a lot, making it more difficult for you to handle, and certainly making a worse job of the cut. Right, now where am I going to start? I think I'm going to come in there, I'm going to come in there, then I'm going to come in there, and come in there, and we'll have a look at the results. Slow and steady, paying close attention to my hand position. Start the curve now, rolling round. So I slow my speed, I slow the amount that I'm pushing. And what I'm looking to do is roll on round and meet up with my relief cut here. I'm continuing to roll round. I'm not rolling a bit, going straight, rolling a bit, going straight. So there's no flats here, it's all one continuous. And you can kind of use the blade as a pivot point. And it feels really easy to roll on round and meet that line there. There we go. And I'll turn that off. And we'll look at the results. Alright, now we can back that up. On a big deep cut like this, I do tend to turn the machine off if my piece doesn't fall away like that. But there we go, look at that. How easy was that? Finish is pretty good. It's not going to take a lot of clean up. So let's do the other side. I'll take that completely out of the way. Away we go. So I'm going to start in the same sort of position but the other side. Now, just be mindful, as the more you cut away, the less you've got to grip, so your hands will be closer. So very mindful again of hand position. Just starting that curve, roll on round. Keep rolling. As the curve gets more, my speed rate gets less. See that? That was more of a twist and a... Just roll on round, just keep rolling round, keep that forward momentum with your hands, and as you're coming to the end of the cut, just slow it up. Turn them up. Okay, that will come out of the way, and there we are. Okay, well, it's quite a big chunky piece. We could quite easily turn that into a little heart-shaped box. So bandsaw boxes as well is something that you need to cut curves on. But this is a good start. I'm going to cover bandsaw boxes in later videos. But there you go. So a really deep cut with a curve, little heart shape. So Ben, if we can just pan back a little bit. So one of the best things a bandsaw will do, as said, is cut curves from thick, chunky stuff like this, thin board material, you might need to put in the occasional relief cut to let waste fall away or let that blade roll round. 1/4 inch blades generally are a must. You can get away with curve cutting on wider blades, 3/8 of an inch, even 1/2 inch blades, but you get nowhere near the curve. I tend to only use 2 blades, to be honest, 1/4 6 and 1/2 inch wide 4 TPI for the bigger, heavier stuff, and then certainly for my straight cutting. So that's the end of this guide for curve cutting. The next video next week, we're going to look at same bandsaw, same person. I'm going to be giving you some guidance on how to get your bandsaw to cut straight. So we're cutting down the length of material, we're cutting thin veneers, we'll look at setup and fence alignment and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully you found this useful. Please, as always, if you've got any questions, drop us a line, comment below, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much. Bye now.